It's time to understand why there's not actual journalism in the media, and it has to do with Big Pharma, and that is a lot of why Bobby Kennedy Jr. wants to remove any ads, any advertising of drugs from television, because this is a huge conflict of interest that is, let's say, dissuading these outlets from doing actual journalism. I'm going to show you this before. One dead and dozens infected in E. coli outbreak linked to organic carrots in U.S. It is, the timing of this is it's so wonderful. Why do you think we have headlines like this right now? And this is very fresh. This is November 17, 2024. You know, that sometimes we see news from many years ago, but this is really fresh. No pun intended. Just because maybe pesticides are not that bad. Maybe pesticides can prevent that you don't die from E. coli with your organic produce. Well, it would be very simple. If you have consumed organic produce other times, you just have to do the same that you do with any other produce. You have to wash it thoroughly. That's it. That is important. That is part of of eating fresh food, and especially organic carrots, for example. But this is made on purpose. This is created on purpose to create some kind of fear against, organic. No, you can die from organic and products because they don't have all this, chemicals that make them safer, because chemicals are good for you. You know where are they coming from? And this is, of course, you already know that, from The Guardian. I wouldn't like to mention The Guardian, but this is what we have. This is the real scheme of Big Pharma versus the media, and why there isn't real journalism. Why are there so many pharma ads on TV? Hint, it's not to sell drugs. A TV news president admitted to RFK Jr. that any host allowing him to speak negatively about Big Pharma on air would be fired, because this is where our advertisers are. Joe's draw when former pharma insider Collie Means told Tucker Carlson on his show, the news ad spending from pharma is a public relations lobbying tactic, essentially to buy off the news. The media plays referee because they are funded on all levels. They are being essentially paid for. So let's watch this video. He explains. It's a very short video.
Network president told me that if one of his talk shows allowed me on the air, that he would fire the host. This person is a friend of mine. And I would have to fire the host because this is where our advertisers are. And if he lost an advertiser, it's a major catastrophe for the network. The press has effectively been neutralized. All you have to do is sit down and watch the 6 o'clock news on TV and see how many of those stories are bracketed by pharmaceutical ads. I was told by a network executive that during non-election years, during some months during non-election years, up to 70% of his news division revenues are coming from pharma.
70% of ad revenue of this network, 70% of revenue comes from Big Pharma. And you can see from, how he looks in that video that this was quite some time ago. Imagine if you take that away from these networks. These people are desperate. These people are desperate. They will have to start doing real journalism so they can attract the viewership that they lost and all the credibility that they lost because, for reasons that everybody saw in this election campaign, this election cycle, there's gonna be a bloodbath. That is gonna be a bloodbath. And no, I'm not talking about the car manufacturing hoax. This is gonna be a bloodbath. That's why they are so afraid. What are the implications of this? There are only 2 countries in the world. I would like to know where are you watching from? Where are you watching from? If in your country you got ads on TV, on the TV, it's like I maybe I remember back in Venezuela when I watched TV. Well, we're talking about like 30 years ago. I don't know if that changed. I essentially stopped watching TV a long time ago. But I remember that maybe you have some like the equivalent of Tylenol, and that's it. There's something for headaches, and that's it. But not, those drugs who have all those disclaimers on the bottom. But only the United States and New Zealand, to my understanding, have that kind of ads. South Africa as well, says Verge. Verge says that in Spain, no ads, no drug ads. I think that in Spain it's really regulated. In Germany, they have also ads. Maybe has expanded. I thought the United States was exclusive of that. But in the United States, it's something that is baffling. Now, maybe in the sense of the amount of ads that you get from drugs for everything, like for everything that for any kind of problem you might have. This is not only headaches. And I can understand from a marketing perspective. I am not endorsing, but understanding that the tactic of these companies, these big pharma companies, is that you're watching TV and you see some kind of a drug for, I don't know, make your heart run better. And the next time you go to your heart surgeon, you actively ask for that drug that you saw on TV. Oh, and your doctor, your heart's doctor, maybe will be happy to oblige on what that brand that you're asking for. And we're talking about brands. Again, this is something that is so crazy on so many levels. Not to mention, well, the conflict of interests that if a physician gives you a drug or gives you a recipe for a drug, a prescription, sorry, prescription is the word, then they could have some kind of bonus for how many prescriptions they write on that drug, with that drug and those prescriptions. That is a huge conflict of interest. They will earn handsomely that way. Now, I don't know. That is obviously legal in the United States, but the thing that Bobby Kennedy Jr. wants to start with is the ads on TV. If you just curbing the ads on TV, you can just chop that hydra. You can chop one head and others. No, bad. Chop that dragon's head, and then you at least can have these outlets doing real journalism, because it's the only thing that they will be able to do. Again, this is a topic. This is the kind of topics that begin to enter the realm of what YouTube doesn't like. So how much time do we got? And which time do we got? This is the kind of topic that YouTube doesn't like.